Hello everyone, and I hope you're well. Now, following on from my last video where I was talking about how through sheer force of will and bravery we managed to roll back the COVID associated tyranny, as I say, through relentless action and protest and resistance. So that battle was a battle that resulted in a lot of losses. What we did do though was make enough people aware to the evil machinery that's spreading its totalitarian tentacles across the world. So have a little watch of that video, because the message from that was one angle of attack from the deep state, the establishment, the hidden hand, whatever you want to call the dark forces. One angle of attack was eventually pushed back against, and my message was, well, there's many other angles of attack, but we've shown that we can harness enough energy, we can get enough people on board, and we can, with resolve and resilience and courage, we can push back and succeed, or even. But I want to counterpoint that with this video now, which is, it's not negative, because the other one was very optimistic. It's not negative, this. It's probably neutral in terms of any emotion attached to it. But I wanted to give my opinion on how the mainstream media is going to try to spin events this year in 2023. I know we're already well into February, but these are just my thoughts on how they're going to spin, influence, propagandize, or attempt to. Now, before I start, there's something that's worth bearing in mind. I've talked quite a bit about the comfortably off middle classes, who tend to be the ones who are most susceptible to programming. I think they are the culture of convenience and decadence and image is most it's very ingrained in these people. It's most pronounced in these people. They tend to have a certain set of views where they parrot each other and parrot the mainstream narrative on literally everything, whether that be COVID, including lockdowns, masks and jabs, climate change, including the hoax that man-made climate change is a thing, Brexit, including 17.4 million people who voted for Brexit were racists and they should have that democratic vote overturned, including irrational, disproportionate hatred for Trump, and so it goes on. And the symptoms of the comfortably off, culturally appropriated middle classes are intellectual and ultimately moral laziness. They are the first generation, the middle classes of the early 21st century, the first real product of a totally defunct culture, one that prioritizes money, materialism, consumerism, ease, image, virtue signaling, being seen to be doing, to say the right things, rather than authenticity and substance, altruism, community spirit, open-mindedness, selflessness, all these things that the suburban middle class kind of imbue. And it is they that hold the majority of positions, within government, that have enabled this tyranny that we have currently right now to take place. They tend to be very subservient, very obedient. They tend to only look one way, which is up in their career. What can I do to get the person above me? What can I do to get their job so I can get a little bit more money, more, you know, better job title, nicer car, fancy TV, better holiday. They're very competitive as well, you know. They're competitive in keeping up with the Joneses and all this kind of thing. Essentially, they're living in the past. They're living in a past which is a recent past, really, which is definitely the past, because the future doesn't belong to them, and the present really doesn't either. Which is why a lot of them, I think, now are starting to finally realise that these lifestyles and this culture that they're living by is not one that has served them well, particularly in relation to a medical procedure that nearly everyone in this group has had. However, one thing that people in the middle class, the suburban middle class, I'll try and define them a little bit more. They live in semi-detached houses in suburbia. They work in the public sector mostly. They went to university. They have 2 cars, but they believe in man-made climate change, but they can't really debate the subject of man-made climate change. They're wholly embraced. I mean, I'm just coming up with a stereotype. Wholly embraced the lockdowns. Most of them were on furlough, got pissed in the back garden on Prosecco and champagne. They put the mask on straight away. A lot of them enjoyed the lockdowns. They all ran to get their jabs. Jab number 1, jab number 2. A lot of them stopped at 2, though, which is interesting, isn't it? A lot of them are on social media a lot, and they use the emojis to reflect prevailing thought, which is mainstream thought, which is establishment, deep state propaganda. They have a very narrow worldview. They have a very narrow perception. They have a very an Overton window of what is and isn't acceptable to say. They love bread and circuses. They are suspicious of people who are subversive or rebellious. They're scared of authenticity. Very beige and monotonous lifestyles that are replicated by the next middle class person in suburbia as well, who's got a similar job, similar lifestyle, 9 to 5, come home, TV, takeaway, fancy holiday, save up for the pension. Right, I might be being unkind, but I'm just trying to build up a picture of the type of person that is very prevalent, certainly in the UK, in the inflated middle class that has been growing over the last few decades. A middle class that really doesn't offer much to society. A middle class that's obsessed with all the wrong things. Now, quite a few of the things that I've just talked about there, you know, I'm guilty of myself. I don't class myself as middle class. Although some people might look at me and say, well, he's middle class, so what's he talking about? I'm trying to, you know, he's being hypocritical, except I'm not, you know. Yeah, do I like a takeaway? Oh, yeah, I do. Do I drive a car? Yeah, I do. Have I worked in the public sector? Yeah, I do. I did. I don't know. But can I have a conversation? Yes. You know, am I open-minded? Yes, I like to think so anyway. Am I obedient? No, definitely not. Am I subservient? No, definitely not. Am I rebellious? Yeah, I am. Yeah. So, in most ways, do I live in a semi-detached? Yeah, I do. But I'm just trying to build up a picture of a stereotypical person. So you'll probably be imagining someone if you're watching in this video. And to get back to the point, why am I talking about this? Because it's these people that believe the bullshit that they're fed still well, enough of them do to a great enough degree for the mainstream media to be able to propagandize enough people into believing whatever it is they want us to believe. So with all that said and done, I'll get off my soapbox. No, I won't. I'll stay on it. I may as well. I'll stay on the soapbox. I feel comfortable on the soapbox. Right, with that, all that said and done, what 3 things do I think the mainstream media are going to do in the next few months? Number 1, excess deaths. So going back to the middle class people that I was talking about, you'll remember them in 2020 fretting and, you know, and crying crocodile tears and wringing their hands over the number of people who were dying of COVID, with COVID, whatever it was. You remember that, don't you? I can guarantee these people that you will know aren't saying a word, not a peep from them, about the horrific situation that's unfolding across the world with regard to excess deaths due to the you-know-whats, mostly lockdown as well, but also the black magic potion. That's the main reason, isn't it? Anyone with half a brain cell can see it. So what are they saying about it? Are they up in arms? No. Are they angry? No. Are they criticizing? Are they, you know, are they calling for restrictions, and are they wanting to get to the bottom? No, don't care, do they? Don't care, because not being told to care, and that's why they don't care, because they didn't care about the COVID thing. They just went along with it and pretended to care, because that's what they were told to do. So they don't care. Excess deaths, though, off the scale. So they're probably aware on some level. Oh God, they'll know people who've died, young and old. Right, how are the mainstream media going to spin this, though? Long COVID. First thing I say about that, long COVID, I know 50% of people I reckon I know haven't been jabbed, which is interesting in itself, isn't it? 50%, not 5, 50. I mean, those who've been paying attention know that the true number of people who've not had a single jab, is far higher than they would ever wanted to make us believe. Anyway, out of that 50% of people who I know haven't had jabbed, are any of them complaining of long COVID symptoms? No, they're not. That's dozens of people. Literally dozens of people. That's weird, isn't it? Isn't that strange? Isn't that really bizarre? Are these people getting ill every 5 minutes and not able to fight off colds and infection? No, they're fine. Get a sniffle every now and again. Yeah, quite a few weren't too well over Christmas for a week or so. All recovered, totally fine. Isn't that bizarre? But that's what the media will spin this as, because it's their only angle. Long COVID. And the COVID zealots, and there are still some of them, and the others who aren't, but need something to believe, you know, to not make them feel like a fool or scared, will buy into that. So that's the angle that the mainstream media are going to spin on excess deaths. Long COVID. Number 2, and you know, that's not going to be just in the UK, that's, you know, in every country. Number 2, war with Russia. You see, that psychopath Zelensky was over in London today. I don't know what he said, and I don't care. Probably asking for more money and more weaponry. I don't even need to check. That's what he will have been doing. I can guarantee you. Send us more money that we can launder, and send us more weaponry. You know, so we can wage war. Now, I'm very, very. We can wage sponsored war, sponsored by the UK and US political establishments, using Zelensky as that psychopathic puppet. And he is a psychopath, him. He's the most dangerous man in the world right now, if you ask me. Evidence for that a few weeks ago when that rogue missile landed in Poland and killed 2 farmers. He was basically calling for World War III right there and then. You know, 5 minutes after we hear about it, Zelensky, this is Putin, Russia must pay. It was all the evidence anybody needed. You know, he's not level-headed. He's nothing but a warmonger, surrounded by a lot of other warmongers in the West. Now, I am not saying... Now, what these normies, right, these middle-class types, what they'd be saying to me now if they're watching this, yeah, Putin apologist. You're a Russian stooge. No, I'm not. I don't know anything about Russia or Vladimir Putin. I don't know more about Russia and Vladimir than any other country and any other leader. All I know is that I'm not exposed to Russian propaganda. I have no doubt whatsoever. The Russian citizens are imposed upon, by their state machinery. Of course, they will be. But I am exposed to Western propaganda, and I can spot lies. I can spot holes in stories. I can do that, and I've got a little bit of, not much, a little bit of knowledge of the region, a little bit of geopolitical knowledge, little bit, not much, a little bit, and I can see, I've done a little bit of research as well into what are the links with all the crypto stuff, the FTX stuff, what are the links to the US political establishment and the Democrats, the Hunter Biden stuff. You can go down all those rabbit holes and find out that you're not being told the truth. So why the absolute obsession with war with Russia? Why? Again, forget what the truth is. Look at the lies. Why did the mainstream media all of a sudden switch its angle on Ukraine from the Nazi Azov battalion influence and the war crimes associated with them? All of a sudden in February 2022, bang, the narrative changed. Russia is the bad guy. Putin's land grabbing in the east. I don't know. I can't comment. I'm not there, and I'm always careful to. I've not given you an opinion here. I can't give you an opinion on what's going on in Ukraine with Russia. I can't, because I don't know. All I know is that, based on what I do know, is that we're not being told the truth, is that we're being fed lies, and that we're being subjected to propaganda. The same thing all the time, lockstep, all the mainstream media in on it, all big business in on it, all the same talking heads, all falling into place, and they are desperate to sell, they are desperate for war with Russia. I mean, what that would look like, God only knows. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not. No, I don't. But why are they doing that? Why would the mainstream media, why are they doing what they're doing now? To distract from what? The excess debts. What are the excess debts? The black magic potion. That's that. Also to just carry on laundering. Like, it seems like everything in the world at the moment centers on Ukraine. It seems like that's the point through which all of this uncertainty and tyranny and lunacy is centered on, is Ukraine. So that's gonna carry on. And don't rule out the return of Boris Johnson. He's a warmonger in waiting, isn't he, Boris Johnson? There's talk of him. Don't rule out the return of Boris Johnson. Who's like that with Zelensky, apparently, isn't he? Don't rule out no, don't rule out. Can they sell a war to the people? No, because not enough people are on side. Not enough people would be willing to sacrifice their own families' lives for this. But these middle-class types will, and there's loads of them. So that's that. Number 3, this applies just to the UK. Brexit, rights to Brexit and the economy. So again, I should do another one on Brexit. I've done a few. Everything at the moment is the fault of Brexit, isn't it? Oh God, it's what these middle class types again are saying. Everything. All right, okay, yeah. So, what? Anything to do with the money that was spunked on furlough? What? No, it's Brexit. All right, okay. Anything to do with the 37 billion spent on that track and trace? It's Brexit. Anything to do with the fact that supply chains were just stopped overnight? No, it's Brexit. All right, okay then. So what's the situation in the rest of Europe then? Because you're talking about economic woes in the UK. Is it just particular to the UK, is it? Or, if we look at all the European countries in the European Union, will we see similar? Will we see some countries that are in a worse state? And also, how do you measure the economy? How are you going to measure? How do you measure the economy? Is the economy not very complex? Is the economy basically all it is a philosophy, basically a concept? It's very hard to measure. And how do you want to measure it? Do you want to measure it on the performance of the stock market? Incidentally, the UK stock market is performing very well. Do you want to measure it on employment or unemployment? Do you want to measure it on debt? Debt as a percentage of GDP. GDP, the deficit. What do you want to measure it on? Imports, exports. What are you going to use it? What are you really telling me the UK is the worst on all of them? Really? But the narrative around the economy in the UK, and it's astonishing how blindsided people are on this. How they'll have the temerity to blame everything on Brexit. And I'll have a conversation. Of course, yeah, you can't judge Brexit for another 25 years, another generation from now. I wouldn't want anything to do with the European Union. You know, our own parliament's a cesspit, but it's the EU even worse. But the temerity that the people have to blame everything on, they do the same on Brexit. They do the same with you know, when they're trying to already frame, you know, the excess debts, as talking about the NHS, and as if we're being underfunded, as we're the only country in the world that has these horrific excess debts. Surely your first kind of like question would be: is this happening anywhere else? And why is this building narrative about Brexit being a failure? Well, because Brexit was never meant to happen, was it? And it was never accepted. It was never accepted by the man, by the establishment, and by many other people. Shockingly, 6,103,056 of my compatriots in this country signed a petition for Article 50 to stop Article 50, which basically was to stop the UK's exit from the European Union. Disgusting, absolutely disgusting. So there was always a massive appetite to never let Brexit happen, and that's just going to be fed into more and more and more using these bogus, you know, poor economic statistics. And then the next general election, I mean, democracy's dead in the UK. It's a joke if anybody thinks we've got a democracy. What's going to happen is Labour will win that, won't they? And then we'll, with Keir Starmer there, we'll start the process of integrating the UK back into the EU, because that's where we're supposed to be, isn't it? In the European Union. So expect more on that as well. So 3 big predictions from me, with a bit of a rant about the middle class that I can't stand. I can't. You know, I just can't. Sorry, but, you know, I want you to let me know what you think. I've quite enjoyed this video, actually. Let me know what you think of anything I've said there. Hope you enjoyed it. And, you know, I hope you had a picture in your head of who the stereotypical middle class believer of mainstream tripe, virtue signalling person is. But let me know what you think, or if you've got your own ideas on what the mainstream media are going to do. I mean, I don't pay any attention to it. I just keep half an eye on it because it's embarrassing, actually. You know, I find it embarrassing how dripping with propaganda and lies the mainstream media. They don't try to hide it at all, do they? But there are still people who believe. So yeah, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And I'll speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.